make a little piece of crystal. Now we will need to know if the colour runs right through this piece or not. We'll do this by grinding it around the edges. Just to see if there are any problems in the piece. To make a doublet, this needs to be solid colour. At the moment this piece does have a skin on it on both sides, so the colour's not very apparent at this stage. Just flatten this face off here and have a look at it. Just taking that skin off. You can see a bit of colour popping through here now. You see I revolve it on the wheel so that we don't hollow grind it. And we'll dry the piece. And we'll mark it with a permanent marker as an indicator, so that when we lap the piece, when all the black's gone, you'll know that the piece is absolutely flat. Don't have to do this, but it is a good indicator. Let's mark the entire piece, the side we intend to flatten. Can't see much colour here because of the skin. So we'll just adjust our water flow on our side lap. It's a 360 diamond lap. I just balance it on my finger, get it a bit wet, and sort of slap it onto the lap, working the whole face of the wheel. When the black's gone, then of course you know the piece is flat. Take a piece of rough opal here. This is a black knobby with an amber skin on it. We have to take a slice out of this to make a backing for our doublet. And I'm going to cut in a fair way on the left hand side of this piece in order to get a slice out of it that's big enough to put our doublet on. And again here, let the saw do the work, don't push too hard. The saw will cut nicely if you just keep a nice even pressure. There's no rush to slice through the piece. There we are. We have a nice black centre, or black heart in this piece. We'll take a slice off this now for our actual doublet backing. As I've said before, don't use too much pressure, let the saw do the work. We're cutting this slice off at around 3 to 4 mil thick. See how this goes. There we are. We have a nice piece of black potch for our backing. Again, we'll mark this all over the face with a permanent marker before we lap it as our indicator. There we are. Machine going. Make sure we have a fair amount of water. It's a fairly big piece. Just balance it on your fingers like I just did there. Slap it onto the lap. It'll flatten fairly quickly on a diamond lap like this. There's our finish off the lap. Those lines in there give quite a good bond. What we do now is we mark it again with a permanent marker, but only where the black is, where we're going to use the piece. We'll do the same with the piece of opal. This is how we make a doublet up. Mix up our 2-part epoxy resin. I'm using a quick set 5-minute here, but as I say in the text, it can take 2 or 3 hours before it's set enough to be cuttable. Mix these as equally as you can. Because we need this black, I'm using a polyester resin dye here. It's very intense black. Just a little bit of that, and mix it thoroughly, all 3 parts. Make sure it's thoroughly mixed, yes. There we go. Now from here, using our spirit lamp again, we'll warm the blacked area on the piece of potch to evaporate any moisture, and it will aid in the glue flowing nicely when we put it on there. A dollop of glue in the centre. Yeah, the glue tends to flow a bit better when the potch is warm. We also warm the opal. Not too much, it's a thin slice. Put it into position where we want it. We bed it down by slightly revolving it to get it down very, very tight. Now here what we're doing is we're going to trim off all the excess potch. That doublet is already set. Magic of television. Just trim off the excess potch and stay clear of the opal. Just saves a bit of extra grinding time. All the way around. See little bits of glue flipping up here and there as the saw cuts through it. Again, not using very much pressure, letting the saw do the work. From here, we have to orientate this piece now, get it into shape. Begin on our course wheel by bringing the potch back into the opal until we have a straight, clean glue line. Yes, grind it in gently. The shape doesn't matter at this point, but the piece must be clean. Let's grind it back into the opal. So we'll have a look at that. See, we've got a nice thin glue line between the opal and the potch. We still have a skin on this piece of opal. We have to bring that down so that we can see what problems there are in the actual opal, if there are any. Do this in a rolling motion, slightly doming it. We don't want it dead flat. There's a slight rocking motion there. Now we can see a bit of colour popping out now. Makes a lot of difference on a black backing. See this corner here, we have a fair amount of grey potch in there. That's got to go. All that area. So our stone will be in this region. Just mapping it out roughly here. At this point you do grind out anything that is an imperfection. Adjusting the water flow again, of course. We'll just shape this into its final preform. And we're doing this at an angle to the wheel, which is the angle we need to finish the setting edge at. These angles are described in the text. It's around 81, 82 degrees on the top. Naturally, it's all done by eye. We don't actually measure it. It's bringing it into a nice little oval. So no rush with shaping it. These wheels are very sharp and will cut very quick. Into a nice sort of an oval there. And we'll start bringing the opal into its shallow cabochon, working from the edges to the centre, as we've done with the solid stones previously. Just forming our little cab. And we'll bring the setting edge up at the back. The angles are not too critical at this point. They are very critical when you do the final cutting. Here I'm basically just removing the overburden and getting a sense of balance into the piece. There you go, you can see our rough form setting edge. And to dop this up, we heat the back of the doublet. Not too hot, as I said, it's fragile. Now we heat the wax and roll it up with moistened fingers so that we don't burn ourselves. Use a fair bit of heat here on the stick. Place it on the back of the doublet as centrally as possible, as we've done during the dopping of the solid stones. A little bit easier with doublets though, because we have a glue line as an indicator, so it is easier to see that you're at 90 degrees to the stick and balanced. Okay, that there, using the glue line as the guide. Is our rough preform dot ready to final cut. Centered in all directions there. Adjust the water flow here. Again, I work from looking down onto the stone. And again, we do cut these by eye at the angle to the wheel that we want the setting edge to finish up at. As I said before, with the solid stones, you could use a template as a guide if you wish. Although a lot of doublets are calibrated in standard size, more so triplets. Yeah, we're going to go nice little shape there. We'll take the shoulder of the opal off now. Start forming our little shallow cabochon. The same as we did for solid stones. Spinning and cross hatching to get rid of the spiralling. We don't want it flat or dished in the centre. We want a slow curve over the face. Ideally it should be very high cabochon, but very bright crystal opal like that's very hard to come by. Quite a nice little doublet. You can see in this shot here our setting edge angle for the top, and I've left the opal fairly thick or square edged. Well, that will come out during the sanding and the pumicing stages. Okay, good look at the angles there. Sanding, we follow exactly the same angle as we cut the stone on, starting on the setting edge first and working up over that little shoulder, spinning it back to the centre. Always from the edge to the centre, and cross hatch to get rid of the spiralling. The more even the finish here and this operation, the easier it'll be on the pumice wheel. Just spinning the little shoulder off right up into the centre of the doublet. Making sure we sand the entire surface area. Just cross hatching there to get rid of a bit of that spiralling. Important to have your setting edge finished fairly well, even though a lot of it will be cut away when we bring the back up. What is left has to be finished well. With the light running around here, we can see our satin finish that created by the sander. Nice even sort of satin finish all over the piece. And we can see the little square edge on the opal has gone down even further now, and it will disappear almost entirely after we've pumiced it. Again, you've washed your hands, the stone and the stick before we go to this wheel, and make sure that the wheel is very wet. Doublets are a little bit more fragile than solid stones. They're not as heat tolerant. Starting on the setting edge at the same angle that you've cut and sanded it at, and working our way all the way up over the shoulder to the centre of the stone. Make certain that edge is done properly. This is exactly the same as it would be for solid opal, with the exception that with doublets we have to have that setting edge at the right angle. Just cleaning it up there to have a look-see. Checking it as we go. Spinning and gyrating, oscillating it, covering the entire surface area of the opal. There's our pumiced finish. You can see now that the square edge that I had left on the opal has just about disappeared. As the light runs around, you can see our pumiced finish is quite even, not ripply or bumpy. You wash your hands, your stone and the stick again, of course, before we go to the polishing wheel. Make sure that this wheel is very wet also. And start on the edge of the stone, as we've done all the way through. right up over the shoulder and into the centre of the piece. Try and work evenly on your wheel too, because it gives better wear. All the way from the edge to the centre. Once you get used to this spinning motion, or the action that we use here, it becomes second nature and it becomes very easy. I'll show you that in a minute. Just a little more. Make certain. We can under polish, but we can never really over polish. We're looking for a very nice, glassy, lustrous finish on this. Wiping on the hand there. As the light runs around here again, we can see a beautiful finish on that piece. Looks nothing like the piece we originally started with. And our setting edge, nicely polished. Most of that will go as we bring the back up though, of course. Now we've turned it over and we're going to cut the back on this doublet. Again, start on the highest points or the thickest area there. And we must bring this setting edge up now at the angle we want it to finish at, and evenly and as straight as possible all the way around the doublet. In other words, the setting edge line has to be parallel with the blue line all the way around. Taking the high points off the back, getting a balance into that before we spin it. Cross hatching a bit there. Take the shoulder off. Now with doublets, of course, I work from above at the same angle that we were working at previously. This way we can see when the edge is even all the way around and equal. And there's our finished setting edge. Gives you a fairly good look at the angles. Straight as you can get it. Nice and even. That's our desired finish for the back of a doublet. We take it off the same as we would with solid stones, heat between the opal and the wax. Just gently pare it off. So use an instrument that won't scratch the opal. In this case I can scrape the excess wax off this stone because I'm not actually touching the opal, I'm only touching the wax, flipping it off. Plus, as I said, the knife is silver and very soft. Because we won't soak doublets in methylated spirits, as it will have an effect on the epoxy resin. So to clean this, we'll simply just immerse it in the methylated spirits. Sort of clean it with your thumbs, fingers, and use a towel to finish up with. There it is, roughly cleaned, a nice little doublet. Give it a good wipe now. Lovely piece, apart from the fingerprints, of course. That gives you a good look at our finish all over. That's how a doublet's meant to look when it's finished.